This material is made available to you by or on behalf of the University of Melbourne under Section 113P of the Copyright Act 1968. It may be subject to copyright. For more information, visit the University Copyright website.
Friends, colleagues, students and visitors, welcome to the Melbourne School of Design Dean's Lecture Series. My name's Julie Willis and I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Architecture, Building and Planning here at the University of Melbourne. I'll begin this evening's proceedings by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which this event is taking place, the lands of the Wurundjeri, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and to the place of Indigenous knowledge in the Academy. The Dean's Lecture Series aims to connect the Melbourne community with international leaders in built environment fields. Tonight, I'm very pleased to welcome special guests Huayan Chang and Yuhan Go, who have travelled from Singapore to be here this evening to present Rewilding the Sky. This is the first time we've been able to welcome a Dean's Lecture Series guests in person for quite a long time. So we're thrilled to have such an exciting practice here with us tonight. Malaysian-born Huayan founded salad dressing in 2002 when he was 23. And since then, it's grown to around 25 people, with the Director of Design, Yuhan, joining the practice in 2010. Huayan and his colleagues have shaped a unique design studio which merges philosophical explorations of time, meaning and the natural world with the business demands of a contemporary landscape practice. Salad dressings projects can be found across Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia and most recently Dubai in the award-winning Singapore Pavilion in collaboration with WOHA at World Expo 2020. Their practice includes landscape designers, gardeners and architects who work together to constantly challenge the boundaries of designed landscapes based on biodiversity, the immateriality of nature and its timeless relationship with humans. Incorporating local culture and nature is a priority for the firm, and their projects find unique ways of exploring how nature and humans can coexist. Influenced by the Japanese firm Super Potato and the UK graphics design group Tomato, this firm's unusual name is a literal reference to landscape architecture's practice of dressing up the green. But as you will hear tonight, this practice is anything but literal. I'm very much looking forward to hearing more about their design philosophy and their inspiring projects this evening. Please join with me in welcoming Salad Dressing Landscape Founding Director Huayan and Director of Design Yuhan to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Julie, for the lovely introductions. I'm very honored to be here today with Huayan. Let me start with a brief background of salad dressing. This is our office, located atop of a former horse raising compound at the foothill of random pristine rainforests of Singapore. We have a sky forest where we collected over 400 species of plants to test out the rooftop conditions. In the garden, we released native animals like stick insects, tree frogs, and morning lizards. Occasionally, bird nests will be found, or some monkeys and hornbills took a respite from. In our air-conditioned office, we have a few closed water ecosystems under our observation too. We study Singapore native fish in different habitats and water strata. Let's zoom out a bit. We are from Singapore. A city in nature is the recent motto of the country. Since the 1960s, Singapore has branded herself as a garden city, as a clean and green environment to mitigate the harsh concrete urban environment. The green plan then evolved into City in the Garden, which focuses on conserving biodiversity and engaging the community. Today, Singapore is one of the greenest cities in the world. The effort of reintroducing wildlife is getting its fruit. The City in Nature vision is about bringing people closer to nature, safeguarding the nature reserve, and providing more habitats for Singapore's flora and fauna. The concern for a lack of connection with the rest of nature outside of us is that a stronger disregard for other plants, animals, and less appealing wild areas could lead to further ecosystem degradations and species loss. Therefore, re-establishing a connection with nature has become more and more important in the field of city planning. As cityscapes grow not only horizontally, but vertically in order to accommodate the demands of increasing population density, the vertical green has become a significant strategy of urban sustainable development. The city of Singapore aims to become a capital city for vertical green. The target is to have at least 80% of buildings by floor area in Singapore to be green by 2030. These are a few examples of Singapore's green buildings journey. Ken Yang of Malaysia has materialized greening futuristic high-rise with technological rationality for climatic issues. Animal Crossing in 2013 expressed the coexistence of other animals in the city. Kampong Admiralty brings green into different floors for the community. And the recent airport jewels contained a forest within. With Kandalama by Jeffrey Bawa as the precedent green buildings in the tropics, we understand that a building can shelter beyond human beings. During the pandemic period, we started to notice our affinity towards nature. Edward O. Wilson's biophilia notions of our innate love and phobia for living things is magnifying our biological relationship with nature. Our natural love for life helps sustain life. Can we share and rewild a building up to the sky? We dream of a vertical landscape as an arc to bring diverse habitats and various ecosystems outwards. With technologies and calculations, microclimates could assist flora and fauna to happen in the sky. And in a close proximity in our daily life, this is taken from my house. And what we need to do is to learn to coexist with other living beings. So yeah, this is our talk about rewilding. Ever since our ancestors learned how to control fire, we had drawn a clear line from nature. In the 1960s, Rachel Carson's Silent Spring awaits people's understanding over the poisons on land from the leftover weapons from World War II. Birds stopped chirping, kids stopped running outdoors, our land is depauperated. We are now in the era of Anthropocene. The sixth mass extinction is on the verge. This round is not caused by an asteroid or huge volcano eruptions or natural change in atmosphere's components. It is caused by the single species on the Earth, the 8 billion of us. Environmental crises can be broken down to climatic breakdown and ecological breakdown. Today, we are both ecologically bored and anxious over the climatic issues, and we can only find the imagination in sci-fi movie. One last man, a dog, guns, truck, fighting another human beings. Is there still hope? Can rewilding put us back to nature? According to Sir David Attenborough in a Conversations with Tim Flannery, there was a time in the 19th century when it was perfectly acceptable for civilized human beings to think that it was morally acceptable to actually own another human being for a slave. And somehow or other, in the space of 20 or 30 years, the public perceptions of that totally transformed. A change in bioethics is calling for us to revalue our relationship with nature. The flip side of globalization is that it is also creating opportunities to upgrade ecosystems at scale. Large-scale land abandonment and rural depopulation in some areas of Europe represents a chance to rebuild Europe's lost mega herbivores wood pasture system and regenerate new nature-based economic prospects for these regions. The word rewilding was then introduced and popularized by George Monbiot in 2013, a British writer known for his environmental and political activism. He quotes, "Rewilding has no endpoint, no view about what is a right ecosystem or a right assemblage of a species looks like. It does not strive to produce a heath, a meadow, a rainforest, a kelp garden, or a coral reef. It lets nature to decide. The way the ecosystem evolved cannot be predicted. While conservation often looks to the past, rewilding looks to the future." According to him, there are two definitions of rewilding. One is the mass restoration of ecosystem. This is to restore to the greatest extent possible ecological interactions. Look at the most successful example in UK, beaver, a keystone species in the river ecosystem that took 20 years and many attempts to reintroduce. Not only the beaver dams contributes to the flow of water in the streams and forming ponds and wetlands, they cut the trees, allow sunlight to penetrate to the forest floor, and encourage new life. The felled trees further provide habitats for fungi, insects, woodpeckers, and salmons, and many other species. It is an ecosystem contained in an animal. In one night on Churchill Island, one bandicoot can make 41 barrels in an hour. Their barrels improve soil health, increase soil moisture and nutrients content, and decrease soil compactions and erosion. The diggings also spread fungi and provide habitats for invertebrates and improve seed germinations. They too contain an ecosystem within. The other definition of rewilding that George Monbiot expresses is rewilding our own life, in other words, rewilding our mind. To be able to accept living together with other living beings, a change in bioethics dissolving as much hierarchical biases as possible. In March 2017, the Wanganui River, revered by Maori in New Zealand, was the first river to officially receive the status as a legal person. Now the river can protect itself with law. This legislation recognizes the deep spiritual connection between the Wanganui iwi and its ancestral river. It deems the river a single living being from the mountain to the sea, incorporating its tributaries and all its physical and metaphysical elements. Well, earlier in 1982, Franklin Dam actions led to a greater awareness of environmental issues. Wilderness photographer Peter Dombrowski photographed the campaign its identity and inspired many to protect the Franklin rivers in Tasmania. Throughout the years, salad dressing has been pondering about the term rewilding. The Vitruvian man is vanquished with a Paralympic athlete assisted by prosthetic runs faster than an Olympic athlete. I realized that rewilding also includes social inequalities by nationality, race, gender, class, and sexuality. I'm extremely happy to be here today as an Asian female landscape architect. Thank you, Gillian, for the opportunity. These are some of the female writers, designers, bioartists that I like and who have influenced me and guided me along, especially the recent bioartists who are courageous to express the change in bioethics with their body and DNA. In our career, we are often asked about the benefit of rewilding. Even after explaining about biophilia and the importance of ecology, the transitions of Anthropocene into the future still confuses majority of people. Let me introduce Masanobu Fukuoka's one-shore revolution theory. Fukuoka-san was a Japanese farmer and philosopher, celebrated for his natural farming and revegetations of desertified lands. Fukuoka called his agriculture philosophy Shizen no Ho, most commonly translated into English as natural farming or do-nothing farming. This is kind of working with animals and plants. Example, bats are one of the biggest transfer of energy. Animals like bats are great pest controller. Guano, as nutrients hotspots, has created a unique carbon ecosystem for many troglodytes. Animals are giant mobile nutrients links. We know that mangrove can reduce destructions of tsunami. Mangrove can also use as a natural-based solution to resolve sea level rise. In Singapore, despite being a well-to-do country, she couldn't afford to build dikes and polders to prevent sea level rising all around the island. Mangrove trees are invited on the North Shore for accretion to happen. Even though the selfish values of ours are the ones that created the current wrath of self-annihilations and destructions of our home, we can still call upon other beings to be our alliance, cooperate with our cousins and relatives that have evolved together with us through deep time to heal this wound, and not just, again, depending on our ecocentric values to resolve. I will now show some example of how salad has been fitting into the notion of rewilding. We are currently working with Enterprise Singapore to promote rewilding. As a landscape architect, we are not only looking at hybridizing or decorating greeneries with buildings. Rewilding is our belief of human is not a final form in evolution. We aim at creating a natural succession process through introducing native species, enhancing habitats, diversifying and complexifying sustainable ecosystem into both wild and urban nature. Today, with assistance from machines, we are no longer handicapped with data. We could translate the senses of other beings into digital and open new windows to the world through other beings. In the World Expo 2021 Dubai, we curated the Singapore Pavilion with Waha Architects. That's my baby. Waha is a Singapore-based practice who focuses on conceiving integrated architectural and urban solutions to tackle the problems of 21st century, such as climate change, population's growth, and rapidly increasing urbanization. The pavilion is designed with three cone-shaped steel structures cladded with greens, fusing abstract geometries among large foliage. Precise calculation of water and energy is formulated beforehand to achieve a net zero, self-sustainable ecosystem. The pavilion can be seen as a superorganism sharing resources among plants, humans, and digital beings. Theme Nature, Nurture, and Future. The pavilion is a demonstration of a resilient and livable city for the future. While Waha is focusing on climatic issues, we are focusing on ecological issues and bringing the notion of rewilding into the World Expo. Salad dressing features Singapore's rich biodiversified natural heritage, the Torocup forest and its forest floor ground covers in one of the cones. In the cone, a few Torocup 6 models spin down through a texture of mist and rainbows to the forest floor with saplings of Torocups. For the native plants to thrive, a microclimate with a precise temperature, humidity, and irrigation was designed. 80% of rainforest in Singapore is made up of the Torocupaceae family. The effort of reintroducing these native giants can be seen increasingly in Singapore's streetscape that mark a change in selecting plants beyond aesthetic and maintenance considerations. 4 terrariums were designed to suspend in a room filled with hybrid orchids. Each contains a native species that represents the 4 significant habitats of Singapore: low rainforest, freshwater swamp forest, mangrove, and the city itself. Unlike those showy hybridized orchids at the surrounding garlands, these native orchids need a specific environment to grow. With the habitat loss, these orchids are facing extinction too. The installation showcases how technology can assist in conservation. The orbital shakers are in the process of producing more native orchids to be rewild into Singapore. We also designed 3 robots to climb around the vertical topography in the pavilion. They are also the ambassadors of plants to convey the mixed emotion of the plants to the visitors. The robot devotedly learned from the collected data on nurturing plants throughout the 6-month event. Salad dressing sees robots not as polaroids in accordance with human needs, but more of the possibilities to be a catalyst for us to know our plants and our ecology better. Our generative and interactive design of art and game is premised on the idea that we are participants in our environment, and that rewilding requires individuals' actions and collective effort. They reflect a future in which machines, humans, and nature, in enabling each other, coexist and co-evolve. The game interacts with visitors and eventually triggers a data-driven digital art piece that is related to global warming, ecological consciousness, and sensing beyond our biological limitation through machines. This is the game board that Salad Dressing designed. We drew quite a lot during the pandemic. I will show the 3 videos in the end of our talk. We developed a few indexes for us to value our biological rich environment in our projects. This includes creating imaginable features, introducing native flora and fauna, water ecosystem, creating new habitats, carbon sequestration contributions, passive rewilding for natural successions, and of course, today's technology. You are going to see this evaluation index appearing next to the images of our projects that I'm going to illustrate. Back to Singapore, the Voice mentioned is our first condominium project that accepts the concept of rewilding. The rooftop spaces are not planted for humans' comfort, but also for habitat. A forested area is cordoned off on the rooftop to allow natural successions to happen, and self-evolving with fauna that are released on the rooftop. Technology like sensor, animal track cameras are proposed to be the catalyst between nature and the residents. That also helps to reduce the maintenance frequency. We propose to have an ecologist as part of the maintenance team once a month to observe the succession of the ecosystem. It was rather tough to persuade the clients to sacrifice a piece of rooftop for the pure nature. On the other hand, we are pleased to know that to further protect its wildlife even after the pandemic, Thailand is now planning to close all of its national parks for 2 to 3 months a year. We are not only doing this for luxurious projects. In Singapore public housing heartland Red Hill, we penned down our first attempt on rewilding water. The project includes the curation of a forest garden featuring an extensive non-mechanical filtration water system that uses plant phytoremediation. Water becomes the catalyst in sustaining the landscape. We introduced 80% of native species into the project. The core principle was to design for natural successions to take place, allowing natives to slowly become themselves. Plants would mature, evolve, adapt, or be replaced. It is a cycle that should require minimum human interventions to sustain. It is an ongoing experimental project, one that allows us to study and add new ecological elements. The attempt of rewilding water also includes the reintroductions of native fish and underwater aquatic plants. The trees around the bioponds will trap the moisture in the air and create a microclimate that help plants to grow in the garden. Leaf litters from the trees are part of the system. They are the fertilizer for the plants. Palm silver occasionally visit the site. It has become a niche for wildlife, but also for humans. We have promoted interaction with the flora and fauna, which creates a biophilic environment. But here you see they get used to each other. What is really not such an easy process is the introduction of native fish into these ponds. It is a constant battle. We remove the unwanted pets like red ear terrapins from the ponds constantly. Asian tends to think that releasing living things after irresponsible buying is a form of good karma. The native lodgers, bobs, and even the strong survivor snakehead finds it difficult to compete with the aliens of African chilids. Apparently, some Chinese can decipher winning lottery number from the body patterns of the chilids. These otters are rewild in the city and have been naughtily exploiting fish ponds around Singapore. These fish that killed by otter are African chilids. They're released by the residents. Here, we saw an opportunity to rewild the concrete city and also to rewild our acceptance of the undomesticated. It is a process for change in the human heart, to rediscover our attachment to the wild flora and fauna, by bringing the forest closer into our neighborhood. We won a master plan competition to revitalize the Pangsua Railway Corridor with Nikken Seiki, a park that is activated by rain and water. Phytoremediation and cleansing system playfully interweave into the design features in the overall curation. Like this pavilion is inspired from Barringtonia seeds, floating and moving in a rain garden. Mangrove was found on site. An attempt was made to establish a habitat for fireflies, which need a very specific food and environment to thrive on. Fireflies' eggs are laid on moist water bank. Larvae then drop into water and feed on a type of snail. And this type of snail fed on a type of algae that only grow on mangrove roots. The larva will then climb to the marginal plants when it is ready. It is stochastic. We can only prepare the ground, yet the web of life provides us with a rich array of ecological imagination. We hope one day the tunnel will transport one to a place filled with fireflies. The canal is proposed to reconnect with sea to allow an extinct amphitromous habitats to happen again in Singapore. Species like giant blue prawns migrate between fresh and salt water at some stage of their life cycle. In 2018, we won a competition for Singapore Third Botanical Garden. Singapore Botanical Garden, Garden by the Bay, and Jurong Lake Gardens are the three botanical gardens of Singapore. Not of absolute distinctions, but we identify Botanical Garden as botany history, Garden by the Bay as entertainment, and we are foreseeing Jurong Lake Garden as an expression of ecological sustainability. We are very proud to be the first local firm to get such a national project after the British colonial governments and UK-based landscape architects Grant Associates. Jurong Lake Garden Centre originally was constituted by a Chinese garden and a Japanese garden. The intention was to fill in the desire of traveling to Japan and the nostalgia towards China at that time. But today, the value of the gardens has changed. As a local landscape architecture firm with knowledge of tropical plants and ecology, we envisage, together with MParks, to express the current environmental crisis and the beauty of tropics through technology, nature, ecological importance, and eventually connecting back to the community of Singapore. It is an ecological orientated botanical garden for people to engage with nature. Water breeds life. We take a close approach to rewild the ecotones between water and land. We attempt to leave water edges around and on the islands from heavy human intervention. One of the examples is to create a rainforest streams water environment. an aquatic environment that is acidic. We studied Homo and Holo that is made up of undulating underwater land formation to collect leaf litter. This design will assist in changing the water's pH. To maintain a healthy ecological balance, we also play with water depth and design a floating green lace to allow smaller fish to escape from predators and breed. Hanging bird nest fern and epiphytes will assist to collect leaf litter and act as a funnel that nurtures the moss below. The storage puddles that nourishes life is based on the footprints of the extinct megafauna of Singapore. To materialize the floating green lace, we did some experiments in our office. We also cut through an existing artificial mound to create a microclimate environment not only for the comfort of humans but also for plants. A gorge with 90% of humidity and 27 degrees Celsius allowed epiphytes, lithophytes and bryophytes to grow. Plants will be curated vertically, allowing water to move down at different speeds and sounds. At the center of the gorge, a sea note is echoing and magnifying the sounds of delicate water like a cave. Precious plants are protected in niches of the gorge wall. We use a periscope technique to reflect light into the little caves. Parastone is a material that absorbs water like a sponge. We drew through the material and inserted the lithophytes. We also attempted to have Nepenthes, the pitcher plants, that will reveal its other appearance under the backlight. This is how insects see plants. These ribarium gardens will have water constantly flooding and flushing the ground at an interval, encouraging moss to grow on the ground and the tree trunk. We are going to have the world's biggest water lily collections, nymphoides, and aquatic small flowers that looks like water lily is delicately displayed in the pond next to the walkway. We collected water lilies around the world and also trying to feature the underwater world. Water lilies are one of the most ancient flowering plants that evolved with beetle. The wisdom of evolution leads me to write this passage for my art mentors exhibition as a tributary to my roots. To me, evolution allows me to see a plant beyond its commodity value, symbol, and form, just as the water lily under my mentor's brush and towards time, space, and scale in life. Here you see a floating garden that is moving slowly above water. It is done through the reflections upon habitats and plants. These gardens are the learning grounds where one can understand and learn about rainforest, and allows the current generations and generations to come into full interaction with the environment. This floating garden is also inspired from endangered roots in Angkor Wat and Life of Pi. This is a true vision for rewilding that we hope for, a flourishing of the living world with all the infinite connections and relationships that weave the unfathomably complex and magical web of life. Gradually, rewilding and biophilia are resonating across Singapore's different sectors. In 2020, during the pandemic period, we participated in an industrial park master plan competition with WOHA. We focused on genotype and not just from our usual phenotypical readings. Inspired by David Milach, we proposed to extend our natural capital from the nature reserve into industrial areas through cloning. An experiment of the tanning water ecosystem was proposed to initiate a test ground with future environmentally friendly construction materials in architecture and in planting materials in landscape. A reverse design based on the need to sustain a specific habitat and its changed ecosystem and not restricted to the current market availability and human comfort aesthetic. Moving forward, we participated in the Venice Biennale theme, How Will We Live Together, last year. As a continuum towards the agenda of city in nature and the capital city for vertical green, we see the potential to rewild the skies with future green buildings to include flora and fauna. We came up with 3 buildings typology. First, extending nature reserve onto the buildings at the forest fringe. Second, connecting existing buildings and increasing green surfaces. And the third, lifting up various habitats into the sky with self-sustaining ecosystem. These 3 typologies will constitute a township which has the same size as Bukit Timah Nature Reserve, the highest hill in Singapore. These 2 habitats become a singular entity which catalyzes the rain by releasing biogenic volatile organic compounds into the sky. This future rain will replenish the dike-bound reservoirs along Singapore's southeastern shore. The wall that will be built to supply more fresh water and anticipates the sea level rise of 2050. The installation is an assemblage of a miniature world. One half represents the Bukit Timah Nature Reserve, presenting nature where flora and fauna thrive. The other half represents the city as a sky forest embowered with emerald green. As one walks around the table, they move through realities and imaginaries. These 2 worlds coincide tangentially, but at the same time cannot be separated. In the void between the screens, a glass mosquito reminds us of our fragility. Mosquitoes are the recorded killing billions of people, more than from humans' war. This species always promise that we are but just part of the nature. We also created 3 perfumes that are emitted periodically. This represents Earth 3 shells that provide protection from cosmic heat and radiation. Water, let's see whether you can smell it. I have it here. This is water. Let's try. And ozone. And magnetosphere. In this way, they are like hyper objects, one that connects, but it is difficult for us to sense. We envision to have more nature reserve in the sky. The artwork acknowledges the extensive biological lineage of the world to humble us in the presence of nature and other living beings, as we are all interspecies coexisting together on the Earth. These 2 worlds are separated by offset screens, reflecting numerous oscillating dualities. Singapore, being a smart nation, will soon adopt the artificial intelligence. Humans could live with nature side by side, with the help of AI to observe natural successions, allowing us to be more aware of the subtle nuances happening in the sky forest. Similar to Ovid metamorphosis, despite cutting-edge technology that defines the civilization of ours, we still struggle with the animality that remains in us. This is a window of opportunity to rewild our human's mind. Slowly, we move towards the temperate zone. The Grove is a mixed-use development with residential and commercial components in Baiyun district of Guangzhou, China. Located adjacent to the largely vegetated Baiyun Mountains, beside increasing greeneries on the facades, we extended precious trees from Baiyun Mountains into the development. We designed a garden that floods temporarily during the rainy season. It reflects the beauty of this subtropical monsoon climate. Here, water pine taxodiums is planted in their favorable flooding gardens again. Alila Taihu Suzhou is designed as a contemporary interpretation of the traditional hamlets of local fishermen. In addition to embodying the culture of Suzhou and China, we are also committed to create a natural and ecological environment. We use ecological swales, large natural water cascade gardens, and water channels to connect to the inner lake. We reintegrate the eroded limestone formation into the water garden. Niches in this Taihu rock allows local crustaceans and other life to take shelter within. Taxodium, the only water pine, was used as a feature here. One paddled through this water pine forest with water movement activating the floating lanterns. The winning of gold in architecture and landscape in Singapore Pavilion brought us a few projects in Middle East. We further expand the notion of rewilding into the real desert. One of the projects is near John Noval's subterranean resort in Sharant. We can't mention the name of the project. Awula is now the focus of the Saudi Kingdom as a new heritage tourism destination. We persuaded the client to look into future sustainability and rewilding. Water and soil are the most important elements to sustain life in the desert. Saudi Arabia's groundwater is depleted. We propose a series of water sustainability strategies in landscape and displaying the process of phytoremediations of grey waters and technologies like passive irrigation. Combining with the ancient wisdom of the Napatians, the water will fit into the native flower land and be shared with the flora and fauna outside the boundary. We did a reverse of desertification. Native plants are selected for their ability to stabilize sand, nitrification, enrich soil with leaf litter, and eventually working hand in hand with mobile fauna. The exchange of nutrients and the movement of energy done through the animals like birds further enrich the biodiversity and soil. On the polarity of the desert is the rainforest. In 2010, we started to explore the rainforest in Borneo. I went for a river cruise in Kinabatangan. I was rather immersed by the life along the river, but sooner than later, my heart sank when I saw the truth of oil palm plantations colonizing the land after the 10-meter forest buffer. But we still find beauty from this complex relationship between lives. It was the first time in my life that I became aware of the biodiversity in a rainforest ecosystem. This awareness is transformed into an urge to explore, to comprehend, and to connect to the land that I was born in. This led us to create a temporary treetop cinema in the rainforest canopy, 26 meters above the forest floor. The film we show is a famous old Italian drama, Sandokan by Emilio Salgari. This site sits in a rainforest seaside town called Sandokan. We realized that most Italians do not know about Sandokan as a place, and most people of this town do not know about the once celebrated drama. The project connects people of two lands and mirrors two vastly different cultures. The treetop cinema exposes this through the imagination of the film and the beauty of the jungle. During the day, people on the platform were also connected to the rich vertical biodiversity of the rarely explored canopies of the rainforest. Canopy dwelling insects were collected on the illuminated screens before the movie started. In the tropics, 1,500 species of insects can be found in one single tree. Within a week, the tower was dismantled to leave behind no footprint in the forest, but to resonate through the memories of all involved. While the footprints are left in one of our longest projects in Borneo, Alila Dalit Bay. A project laden with our tropical dreams. This is also a project that gives me this complexion. The hotel is sitting on a bay, 230 meter long, one unique building facing a beautiful sunset. One side of the building is blasted by sea wind, while another side is protected by the blessing of Mount Kinabalu. The building itself created a few interesting microclimates for us to expand different gardens accordingly. The boundary line wall was pulled out by us. Mangrove park is proposed in the burnt forest. We attempt to rewild the water in the hotel and connect the water to the mangrove ponds. We have an eco playground, a variety of fruit trees to share with animals, and a bat house. Bats is an important pollinators in the mangrove forest. The hotel is blessed by the monsoons and tropical storms. With abundant rain slashing onto the land, feeding plants and animals, filling up ponds, water is essential to all lives. A water system is connecting the hotel to the mangrove park. It is a highway for animals to cross the two realms, including us. The project carries Salad Dressing's initial design philosophy on immateriality. Some path was calculated to frame the sun setting at the center of pavilions according to special days like Earth Day, Labour's Day, Mangrove Days on 27 July, Children's Day on 7 October, Christmas, and Valentine's Day. And of course, the most important one for the projects to get through, we celebrate the client's birthday. When the night comes, bats enjoy their feast in the forest. We propose to have an animal-friendly lighting concept to protect our nocturnal friends. So, reserve the pavilion to propose to a girlfriend now. Another pavilion is inspired from peasant argus, a type of bird in Borneo. In order to create as many habitats as possible, we use different materials and construction methods to detail out the water edges. A secret pond is hidden in the coastal forest, providing an animals a drinking pool. After rain, water with residues from the buildings flow into the pond and connects to a floodplain planted with reeds. Surrounding topography is shaped such that the surface water runs into the floodplain. The overflow water will then be flowing out to the cascade and joins into a natural pond through a stream. Phytoremediation plants are planted around the ponds, streams, and floodplains. That helps to cleanse the water before it reaches the sea. Silt and nutrients are the main cause of eutrophication. We drained the sedimentation pond one afternoon. With water decreasing, we became mindful of little creatures challenging the tightening aquatic space. We get cattails, water ferns from a burnt forest. They are strong phytoremediator and support a fantastic variety of insects, all good food for water birds. This is the beginning of a habitat. Under the leaf litter are stone slabs to prevent the spread of cattail. The assist is opened out for the sun to spark the water once a year. No hassle of maintenance. Ecotone species will populate different realms. A highway provides connectivity and energy flows in between for animals. We learned a lot from these projects. Example, how to plant mangrove. First, we collected rhizophora seeds that were abandoned in the coastal fringe where we had our lunch, giving them a second chance. Secondly, we use a stick to puncture a deeper hole for seed pods to be inserted, and then we add gravel to support and prevent leaching of soil. And third, let the seed decide its future. We have a collection of plants according to the taxonomy here. Take a look at the genus of Mimicylon. They all look the same. But in fact, each is supporting different insects and birds. Can we perceive plants beyond human-orientated aesthetic and convenience? The facades is hybridized with green. Both droppers and climbers are selected to blanket the facades. Here, we are trying to connect the ground to the sky. Ficus is a rhizome species that provides food source all year round. They are inserted sporadically on the facade. We call the projects ficus focus. The ficus trees will burst out from the facade, stretching their arms out and sending down their aerial roots. This is something good to do in Australia too. Birds come for the fruit with more nutrients and microorganism exchange. So how to do this? First, we find a new area's roots, wrap it with long tube, and attract the roots with oxygen and water below. Cause the ficus a little and wait till the roots grow to the ground. Once it touches the soil, the area roots will strengthen itself as a supporting need for the main trunk. Hopefully, these connections will allow terrestrial animals like palm civets to enjoy some fruit on the ficus. A snake path without snake. Subterranean world is something that we can see through the assistant with machines today. The underground network is a forest that is communicating through mycorrhizals. We are trying to review this subterranean world in this project. A playground is waiting for the sun to set at the center on a Children's Day. We too share the playground with animals. We were brought into Puerto Rico El Yunque National Park by an ecologist friend from Florida. The islands experienced a devastating Hurricane Maria in 2017. They are looking for restoration and conservation at some of the damaged area. These projects involve technology such as drones to study the national park. According to study, we understand that mongoose is an invasive species in the island that causes a few species to extinction. To small animals, a small stone gap like that might be a saving ground. A feature is designed to bridge both technophile and nature levels to view through a refuge for small animals. One can drive a little robot into the heaps of rock to hunt the treasures and encounter with the animals. You can feel the animal's perspective like Maze Runner through controlling these little movable robots. We hope this little installation will assist not only the small animals, but also to rewild human consciousness for the ecology. We also created some jobs for ourselves in Australia. In 2021, we participated in Melbourne Design Week with Dr. Yazoo. Team Design the World You Want through the lens of climate, examining how designers can mediate the effect of climate change and ecological breakdown. We mirror 5 rooftops of Melbourne City up to the strata of the sky. I will pick a few here that is about rewilding. In the burial of meteorology, we express the history of Melbourne losing its flowerlands to sheep pasture. Pollen of ryegrass, a type of invasive grass that is monopolizing Melbourne flowerland and also causing thunderstorm asthma, is trapped and performing in a glass volcano. Soft-footed like bandicoots are rewild, while humans' footsteps compacted the ground in contrast with the flowerland above. It is a theater from the sky to remind one the history of the land. Another two are to do with the conflict between humans and other animals, mosquitoes and dingo. Dingo are not as cute as our pet dog. They are pushed away from city. We have a rooftop here for people to encounter with this interspecies of our friends that evolved together with us. Mosquitoes have been the #1 killer. We feature a species of vegan mosquito that doesn't suck blood or spread disease. It is to remind one that there are more species of mosquito than the few that we are fear of. And are we to play God now to eliminate the species? I think the encountering of these animals summarizes up the space we have to share with animals. A space totally untouched from humans, a space where humans close their doors from another living organisms, and a space to intermingle. These three spaces shall be equal status. To us, rewilding is about this intermingle. How do we share space? We need strategy to smoothen the new collisions in these relationships. To resolve the conflicts with undesired animals, we can design elements like monkey-proof railing or anti-snake windows. Yet, in order to achieve a true dissolve, we need to rewild our mind. Lastly, I'd like to conclude the talk with 3 videos that we made for Singapore Pavilion. First one is to do with the planetary issues that we are all facing, including sea level rising in 2050. Singapore's natural-based solutions on the north is to have a creation in mangrove forest. Like the tiger, the mesmerizing song Cross Through the Strait is tributes to the call of freedom from the sea tribe, Orang Seleta, which was chased out by Singapore in the early days. The single cloud floating in a beautiful sky is a result of the rise in carbon dioxide, which suppresses the formation of stratocumulus clouds. The second video is an expression of altruism and inclusiveness towards the forest ecosystem. The video is divided into 3 parts. The forest floor where humans enjoy the hybrid orchid, hybrid durian, the upper tier where hornbills enjoy native durians, and the tip waving to hornbills. Grafting is a technique used in agriculture to produce juicier, bigger, and tastier fruit. Here, we use grafting to share our favorite durians with animals. Bats is also benefited here. Pollinating durian is their part-time job during the durian flowering seasons. Third one is about on wealth, seeing beyond our biological limitations. Here we use the pavilion as the catalyst to show what we don't see through our big five senses, which includes architect's eyes through building software like BIM, the inner organ of running electricity and water that sustain the whole pavilion, plant sensitivity towards light spectrum, collections from our robot's eyes, mycelium that connects us as a holobiont, desert lizards thermal infra sensing, falcon's ultraviolet wave range, sonic and sonar sound, AR filter that is popular today, point cloud scanning, and at last, this collapsed into an image like the latest space telescope James Webb. The sound here is an imitation of the most ancient rituals from our ancestral, the cavemen. The fire that once drawn us a clear line from nature, ignite a new relationship with other beings. Digital technology through robots, our machines, and the many metaverses can assure that our human being senses are not the only one that exist. As Malaysian-born ecologist Ed Yong quotes in his new book, An Immense World, Earth teems with signs and texture, sounds and vibrations, smells and taste, electric and magnetic fields. But every plant and animals can only tap into small fractions of reality's fullness. Each is enclosed within its own unique sensory bubble, perceiving but a tiny sliver of an immense world. Salad dressing coined this as 33, 33, 33, and 1. 33 for living beings, 33 for digital beings, 33 for human beings, and 1% for the abstract unknown that allows our heart to be untamed. In your future career, if you are curious about rewilding, just leave a little 1% space for ecological imminence encountering, both love and phobia interactions, and untamed imagination to happen. I reflected over the title of our lecture today, Rewilding the Sky. I realized that my English is not very good. It might be rewilding under the sky. In Chinese, 天下, everything under the sky is equal and worth having a relationship with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Johan. It's been an absolutely extraordinary treat to see into your world with yourself and Huayan a really amazing vision of a positive future, one that encompasses technology, that encompasses the wild world and a future for humans that's so exciting. Thank you so much. I'm sure there are many people in the audience who would love to ask questions. However, we have a reception starting on level 1 right now to celebrate and launch the award-winning book, The Big Asian Book of Landscape Architecture, in which salad dressing feature. So please do join us, and special guests Huayan and Yuhan upstairs to continue the conversation. But before we go, I'd like to mention a couple of our current and upcoming events here in the faculty. The Sharing Schools Building Communities exhibition is on show in our Dulux Gallery until the 26th of August, showcasing the latest research into using schools as community hubs. It's well worth having a look at it. We also have a symposium in late September on digital design innovation. Head to our website for more details on either of these and all our upcoming events. Thank you again, and I wish you all a good evening.